Welcome back to another episode of the Social Ledger Report. This is JR.
And I'm Leon. I think it's been a little bit of a break. I
Yep,
don't actually remember the last time we released.
I agree. I think we've been busy. I've certainly been busy. Been working on MintLocke. A lot of good stuff is coming out there, but we simply couldn't leave you back. We're trying different things. We want to do more of like a sports take to what we're doing here, just to keep things a little bit more interesting. We're also pretty big fans of TBPN, so not to take away, their style, but let's be honest, every idea, everything out there is already plagiarized, so nothing's unique anymore, except maybe the cadence of our episode or how we're gonna design these. But yeah, so this time around we have quite a lot of stuff to talk about. We want to talk about April has probably been the worst month for crypto ever as far as DeFi goes, and then Mythos. Everyone is losing their minds over Mythos. I have thoughts. Leon has thoughts, and we want to correlate all of it because this is all cybersecurity related. And then, yeah, maybe go from there. What do you think, Leon?
It's a lot happening and everything's moving faster. And every
Yep.
single day seems like a hack or some sort of drama in DeFi crypto. So I'm going into this like I would say like 50% blind. Uh,
50%
I
blind. Okay.
know some of the hacks, I know some of the things, but honestly, everything's kind of blurring together.
Yeah. So I'm happy to kind of show you what I've been going over this week. So I'll share my screen. Here's the scoreboard for what's happened this month. There's over $605 million in attacks made in DeFi, and which zero of it has been recovered. And this happened in the last
I
19 days. Go ahead.
I'm a little surprised that nothing's been recovered. Not a
Nope,
cent of it. Like,
not a
and
single.
it was all in stable coins. I thought Tether locked up some of it, right?
Um, no, I don't think I couldn't find anything about Tether locking anything up, honestly. This is all really new, so I'm honestly not too surprised nothing has been recovered, but also, I mean, anything can happen. So maybe they could have recovered something.
I think I saw something on Twitter, and now the fact of the matter
Okay.
is it did it happen? Yeah, they did. The Kelp DAO.
Kelp DAO,
Did you
yeah,
see
what
that
they had
one?
recovers. I did see that one.
Yeah, the Kelp DAO. They froze some of the money.
Oh, well, I don't think that's considered recovering because you're not necessarily, I mean, you're preventing money from being stolen, but you're not necessarily recovering the money that was stolen itself. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that's where I'm coming from. Or rather, that's where I'm personally coming
I
from.
I I guess it's like I don't know how it works with like the stable coins
Hmm.
because of it. Like, yeah, like it's I guess you're right. Like essentially it is like it'd be clawbacks and stuff, but
Yep.
there is like Tether is participating in even clawing back some of the money from the drift hack. So they're
Yep.
they're in process of it, I suppose. I'm just shocked that none of it has been not or none of it's been recovered so far. Wow.
And from what I learned in Q1, because we're already at Q2, mind you, in April, but in Q1 there was a total of almost $500 million stolen. So April alone is more than all of Q1. And also this in just 1 month, this was over 12 protocols and 37 decentralized apps, or at least year to date, there's 37 apps that were hit in just 19 days, which is pretty insane. Yeah, so I guess just to kind of kick this off, let's talk about Drift protocol, which is probably what kicked it off on April 1st, no less. So I was on Twitter, like my usual day. I was walking with my fiance at the time when I learned about this actually. If I share my tab. So what I want to tell you, Leon, is I think you and I were talking about it, and I was walking on Katy Trail here in Dallas. But Lazarus Group is this is from Zach XBT. I won't read it all, but basically he did all his, on-chain detective work as he usually does, and I mean he uncovered a lot of money, and essentially correlated the crime of the drift hack. Zach XBT, as this renowned on-chain detective as he was able to find, trace all of this attack on the Drift protocol, which is on the Solana chain, to go back to a North Korean hacking group. Um, and on top of it, you know, they've they've been pretty open in the community. Like they've been open on LinkedIn, on X. They've posed as normal people, I guess, outside of North Korea, but in the end, they were all just North Korean spies. So you
Yeah,
cannot
because
trust
they
them too
actually
much.
worked at Drift. Like
They did.
this is the hacks that have been like the most interesting part of it is they are, and maybe you weren't, I don't think you were clear on what you were saying, but
Yeah, no, you're right.
they were working as employees of Drift when they were trying to take down to take to the money, and it's more of a social engineering hack than anything. Essentially, they get access
Yep.
to it, they're trusted, and then all of a sudden they drain wallets and money and move things.
Yep. So here's the scoreboard or the box score. This happened April 1st. This was on the Solana blockchain. Over $285 million were lost in damages, and it took about 12 minutes in total to drain this. Um, there was no bug, it was just social engineering. And this entire thing, apparently, according to Zach XBT, was about a 6 month infiltration. And yeah, I mean, this is the scoreboard.
I
Um,
I think I think the bigger thing here is that Tether is replacing USDC as part of the Drift protocol.
you think so?
Like yeah, because it's de-seeding Circle as like kind of like the primary stable coin. Like when you think of stable coin, most people say USDC, even though
Hmm.
USDT is the larger volume provider.
Yep.
But the fact that they've come in, I believe they gave 148 million to kind of stabilize the protocol and help de-seed USDC. I think that's the bigger part that Tether is trying to like rescue everything, and Tether's
Yep.
willing to help claw back and kind of stop this because Circle's unwilling to freeze those assets that are moving into North Korea. Like they were just like, no,
Wow.
that's not like they took like a principled stance against it, which I found very odd considering they're known to freeze other wallets and other transactions if there's suspicion or court orders. Like this seems way more clear cut, and they should freeze that money.
It's a very tricky situation. If you ask me, I would also be on the side of just don't freeze anything ever at all. That's how crypto should be. But if you're already doing it, do it for the right reasons. In this case, with North Korea. So, I mean, yeah, Circle dropped the ball here. I don't know
Well,
why they.
that's why
Yeah,
I think if you want to take the stance of
yeah,
don't freeze anything, that's why you got to use like Bitcoin or a non Bitcoin, Ethereum, something that's not controlled via governmental like regulation or even just owned by like a VC, like Solana. Like I think you got to
true.
pick and choose on what chains you support. Then, if you're on centralized systems like Solana, I don't think you get away with saying, "Hey, you shouldn't freeze anything," or even Circle. Like those are governmental like crypto versus Bitcoin, which is being used by Iran to you know essentially put a tax in the strait over there.
Man, that whole conflict is pretty crazy with Iran. It all
Well,
seems
and
to
it's
correlate somehow, though.
yeah, 100%. Like it's when the North Koreans are taking advantage of everything right now. I still have a conspiracy theory that all of these hacks are kind of related to Clarity Act and just kind of making DeFi and crypto look unsafe, and their inability to actually like claw back this money is kind of also showing that it's going to be a greater pain for banks and regulators to actually like control the money supply, which makes it look better for a bank in the end.
Yeah, I think that's the play banks are playing here because you can always lobby not just politicians, but also news media outlets, PR, relations, you name it, just to push a certain kind of narrative that you want. Uh, what is it? like there are some public outlets out there that news outlets out there that you can just pay to be there. You can just pay them to release certain kind of articles. So it's not necessarily open media that's genuinely happening. So to your point, yeah, that that's probably what's happening. However, I do have another big story. If you thought the drift protocol was a pretty big deal, well, we have a lot more to talk about, believe me. So, what I think is probably the biggest loss this month is from the Kelp DAO, which you mentioned earlier. So, this is the play of the month scoreboard. So, this happened between April 18 and the 19th. It happened on Ethereum plus several other layer 2s. About $494 million in total damages happened. So total damages are $292 million drained from Kelp. 196 million was bad debt from Aave, and 6.6 was a total value lock from Exodus. So again, almost $300 million drained. And then 116,000 RS wrapped Ethereum, which is 18% of the supply, was taken here. Um,
What
this
is
is from
bad
the
debt?
bad debt. I
Yeah,
think
what
it's
is that?
just. I know it looks a little bit weird here based on the scoreboard, but I can
Oh,
pull it up if you
so
want.
it was bad debt wasn't stolen directly. It's second order damage from the rsETH that's being used across the DeFi.
Yeah, I guess
So
that's one
so
way of
it's
putting it.
collateralized out there. So like essentially the loans that can't be fully repaid because the collateral is no longer worth enough. So it
Okay,
becomes
yeah.
bad debt. It's not
Okay.
that the bad it's not that it gets stolen. That's how much the third world effect is on it.
Third world effect this. Okay, well that's probably a
Yeah,
better
because
way to put it. Yeah.
Aave had to freeze the rsETH markets due to the bad debt risk. Like essentially nobody could repay it because the values dropped too hard.
Well, regardless, Aave has
And
been kind of in the spotlight here this whole month.
yeah, yeah, but I also think like the correction there is
Yep.
the so the bad debt is because it fell, and then that 6.6 billion TLV TVL is
Yep.
the excess. Is that's all the liquidity that was leaving that caused the bad debt.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a great, better way to break it down than I just did. So I appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah, because it's
Um.
essentially how they calculate it is which loans are underwater. So essentially, if you bought a car and you drove it off the lot, your $50,000 truck turns into a $30,000 value, but you have a fifty
Yep.
thousand dollar loan, you have bad debt on that because the assets don't cover it. Same thing that's happening here. You're underwater on your loan, so it's not directly stolen, but it comes broken as collateral used in the lending. The number, and just this is just what I'm reading, the number still is unclear, but it's serious enough that the lending market's frozen and then the billions in liquidity exit, which essentially is a bank run. Like this is what happened here was a bank run.
Yeah, I'm glad you pulled that up. Let me. Here's what I'm reading. So this is from DGen News. This happened April 19th. So actually today, just a few hours ago. New Aave TVL drops over 6 billion following the bad debt triggered by 290 million rsETH exploit on the Kelp DAO. This is all Solana, which is I didn't realize how integrated these protocols were with each other. These are all just DeFi protocols, lending your money. You can wrap your token. You can be stable coins. You wrap it on whatever token is native to the network, and then you can just accrue interest or yield on it. That's generally what these protocols do. But man, over $6 billion following bad debt trigger. That's an insane amount of money.
Yeah, because essentially what they stole was the restaked ETH token, which was worth about
Interesting.
$300 million. So that
Yep.
was stolen. 6 billion exited on the flow. That's what triggered the bad debt because essentially you had a currency like fall. You
Well,
see what kind of happened, right?
I see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Honestly, even as I was going through this, it was still kind of unclear. But no, no, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's
So
essentially what happens in like foreign countries, like in Argentina, where the currency inflation skyrockets, the currency drops, and then
yep.
all the debt, the debt becomes bad. That then then the currency is worthless. And that's essentially what was happening inside of Ava,
Hmm.
I always want to call it agave, but
Me too. Agave is fucking good though. Yeah, man, this is scary. Like people, we've talked to a few people trying to onboard on MintLocke in the last month, and they have asked some good questions, and they're very tough questions. Like, hey, how can you protect our money? One thing I like to tell people is, I mean, first of all, we're not using third-party protocols anytime soon. We need to be more rigorous as to what kind of protocols we're going to parking your money on to accrue yield or anything like that. So, you know, if we're going to build something, it's got to make sure, not only we rely on audits, but we also create some sort of foundation where we can mitigate as much social engineering hacks or breaches as possible. So, at MintLocke, I'm not going to go into details, right? But like, in the architecture that we've been building is pretty isolated. We create zero day issues as much as we try to reduce them as much as possible. But I mean, we can talk a little bit about how Claude Mythos is going to change that possibly. But
yeah. I also like I think the big thing too is like
mm,
DeFi is high risk. Like there was, and let me pull this up. There was this dude on Twitter that was talking about it, and I think he has to some degree a good take on here is DeFi rates are just too low for the level of risk. There's 12 billion sitting in Morpho
oh yeah,
vaults, 2 to 4% APY. Like the essentially these lending are working as how banks used to work or how banks do work. So instead of you giving your money to Citi and they go and do all the lending and everything, and they have rules and regulations on like how much cash on hand they have to have, whether the mortgages that are backed and all of that. They're essentially offloading this to these lending platforms, and all of them are out there like at risk. It's all third party lending. Like you don't know what's collateralized. This is what led to 2008, where mortgage bonds weren't really as safe as everybody thought they were. They fell apart. It's what's caused other shocks in the world where they were lending out against oil or golds or other just assets. And I think this is one risk out there, and that's one risk I think we're trying to figure out how to vet these platforms outside of just security audits. Like all of them have
right.
had security audits. All of them have been pretty safe out there, but it's all comes down to platform and also like chain risk. Like there's no stopping the fact that these are risky, they are lending. There's just so many little things that could happen. And I think we're looking at how do we make sure we pick the safest one that has the most liquidity that could survive these hits. Like I think highly regulated ones, like we've talked about, how I believe how Morpho's used with Coinbase, how like I think most retail investors on Coinbase don't realize the risk that they're putting their money at when they're lending for an extra 1-2% basis points, out there. But it is interesting to kind of see all of that because that is a lot of money to get stolen. Like it's a
It
ton
really
of
is.
money to be stolen.
And what sucks is, if this was like an FDIC backed entity like a bank, I mean, the taxpayer pays it, but I mean, at least people keep their money. But in crypto, it's even harder for that because we don't have that. There's no insurance. And even if there were, it would be expensive because this happens all the time. So DeFi is at a point right now, and there's more attacks we could cover, but just for brevity here, um, DeFi will probably not be very appetizing for people unless it incentivizes them. Like I'm thinking better rates, better yields, better incentives overall. There's a lot of risk. The UI UX is very clunky as well with DeFi, and it's gone better over the last few years, but it's still like, especially with KYC, like if we're doing crypto on ramp, like you gotta verify that in there you're buying $10 of crypto, which is not very appetizing. It's very high churn on ramps actually. But the point I'm trying to make here is if we want to make DeFi better, there's got to be better incentives and better UI UX, better experience overall, and just reward people for partaking in the future of the economy. Because I really believe agents and people are just going to be using crypto not necessarily the way we're using it now, but like in a more streamlined capacity in the next maybe two or the next decade or two. So we got to get there. If we got to get there, we got to incentivize people.
That's fair.
That's
It's
that's
it's fair to want, especially for the risk right now. I would say, like, these rates should be 30%, to take on that sort of risk. If you
do you
think
think
about it
it's
at large volumes,
do you think it's sustainable though? That high of a yield or
it might
interest?
not be sustainable, but that's how much risk you're taking on. Like, I'm not going to park, $50,000 into any of these platforms for 2 to 8%. Like, you could put them in other safer, like T bills and like the U.S. stock market, and probably have a much safer return than just getting that money and having it semi-liquid. Like, I love DeFi, and I think this is all great, but I think that there is a risk curve that has kind of passed the, hey, this is super risky. And what is the big part is most retail investors cannot afford to lose money.
Yup. I mean, we'll see what happens. But next thing I want to talk about is Claude Mythos. We've talked a lot about cybersecurity attacks. I think a lot of this it's not necessarily code exploits. I mean, the code is robust because you got to get a security audit. You need to actually have a pretty good setup. You got to follow a lot of compliance for that. It's very hard to say the least to get a compliance, but Claude Mythos might change that for everyone. In San Antonio, we've known some people who are in the cybersecurity realm there, and especially since San Antonio and UTSA is among one of the biggest cities with the largest cybersecurity education there. Um, but Claude Mythos seems to be putting even them at a state of uncertainty. They don't know what's going to happen. They can only guess, just like how we all can about the future. But yeah, all that to say, I think Claude Mythos is something we should talk about next. I have a few ideas how this could impact the future of DeFi, but let's see. What do you know about Claude Mythos? Would be my question, Leon, just to kind of gauge where we should go
So
going forward.
yeah, like I've seen all of this, and I think humans constantly go to the most extreme, and I think the hype around AI has always been what, like, I think it's a marketing tactic. Like, everyone says that every single model is the greatest model. It's got AIG. It's got ability to change and kill jobs. I think Anthropic's leader is constantly saying there's going to be no lawyers. There's going to be none of that. And I think we see the exact opposite. And I know Mythos is supposed to be one of their strongest and most advanced, like, models so far, and it's got like over 500 exploitable, like, 0 day vulnerabilities, and they're working with large companies out there. And I would say the one thing about Mythos, if you look on the website for Mythos, um, everything is about, like, large scale companies, Microsoft, like, all of those. There's no companies that are crypto related. Like, I'm looking at it right now, and I can share this screen.
No, that'd be great. I didn't even know the 40 companies off the top of my head. I just know Google, Microsoft, Apple. Those are the maybe Apple, maybe not, but we'll see.
Yeah, like, I'm
Cisco, okay,
seeing
CrowdStrike.
in there Cisco, CrowdStrike, no surprise, CrowdStrike, JP Morgan, Linux, Microsoft, Palo Alto Networks, all of that. But there's not a single crypto company mentioned. Like,
That's cool.
there's very few, like, companies that I do think that are, possibly e- even more critical in the financial space. If Circle is going to be going out there, if Coinbase is out there, all of them. So this is why
I'm actually
I'm
surprised.
much more of the mind that this is just really good marketing. Like, every single time you can do it, if you can get everyone to kind of believe you're the best model and you're going to change society, it's out there. We're seeing, Claude design essentially kill Figma and
Yep.
Claude, or Figma and Adobe, So I think this is way more hype. But the interesting part is that again, the crypto space has been left out in this, and I think it's some
Yep.
of the most critical infrastructure that's being built out there. And if our infrastructure is going to be based on a blockchain, we need to make sure that that's one of the most secure items out there.
Especially how vulnerable it is right now. I mean, it's prone mostly to social engineering, which the only challenge I have for Anthropic is if you guys can solve social engineering, we certainly don't need any other cybersecurity firm out there because that's always the number one reason. I mean, I mean, the only one that I can think of on the top of my head is the I love you letter from like the internet in the 2000s where you would get an email from a coworker or something and you would open it and spread malware. That's the root of it is social engineering. So that may never be solved, but it's my only challenge. But with that said, this is how you were mentioning marketing on the side of Mythos. I've been on the internet uh, a lot, and this is the meme that I'm seeing. This is how Anthropic is portraying Mythos to us, kind of like this unchained or chained being that, when released in the wild, is just gonna wreak havoc. Which, man, I didn't look at the entire list of Glasswing until now, and I was very surprised not even Coinbase was there. I was talking to my father-in-law the other day, um, and we were talking about Cloud Mythos, and I said, "Oh, I bet Coinbase is one of them because him and I, talk about crypto on a cadence or sparingly, but I always thought Coinbase was there because shit, crypto is highly vulnerable, and I'm surprised these people don't even consider them. I strongly think Nvidia and Anthropic now don't like crypto. I mean, Nvidia, you know, after the what is it 2021 when you could mine Ethereum based on the graphics card, they've only been supporting companies with their products that are non-crypto. Like if you're building something on crypto, you don't qualify for any of their programs, any of their incentives, any of their, giveaways, you name it. If you're building a company in crypto, whereas in AI, they'll give you everything. And Anthropic, well, I'm kind of surprised, truth be told. But
I'm really not surprised though, because crypto is a second class citizen in every way. Like, even as governments adopt it, it is a disruption to the financial system. It is going to change how it works and everything. Like, many crypto firms are still fragmented. There's less trust in systemic risk discussions. Like the fact that these run on the banks can happen. Like all of that. I do think that there's a very big marketing problem for DeFi and crypto as a whole. Like when somebody says crypto now, they think USDC, and that is crypto. It's not what you're thinking of. And really, like, bridges should be considered critical infrastructure. DeFi should be like high value risk. Out there, and the project does include financial infrastructure players, but they're saying like none of this is really out there, and there's no crypto company or part of the core group so far.
man, not even, well, Binance is not even US located, and AI is pretty biased towards American companies. So it makes sense, but still, I mean, Coinbase is probably the biggest one. It's in the S&P 500, after all. So I'm kind of shocked, to say the least. But um, where do you think we're headed in the future of DeFi with Cloud Mythos rolling out outside of the 40 companies?
I don't really think Mythos is going to be that groundbreaking. I think it's going to improve and everything, but I think there is a lot of hype around it. I think there's going to be some more hacks and some more stuff that happens, but crypto is still like a wild west. It's like the internet in 2000. Like it's just not, it's not there yet, and it hasn't really consolidated. It's really got a lot of friction, just like wallets and contracts, things that don't work. Like there's so many parts to it that is hard to use, that when when Mythos does come out, I think it's going to expose some more stuff, and it's going to really kind of decimate these platforms that just are not investing in security and compliance and building good code. Even if they do have security audits, like I'm seeing it everywhere. Security audits don't mean anything anymore. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't mean anything. If somebody tells me they've got a security audit, I don't really trust it in most ways. Like it's kind of like saying, hey, I have a lock on my door, and I'm like, okay, like that's cool. What else are you doing to make sure they don't get in?
You have a gun, maybe an AK or something.
Exactly.
So
Cameras, safe rooms, all that stuff.
in DeFi, I think that's gonna go beyond code audits. I think it's gonna be based on the way they architect their infrastructure, which a lot of it could be public knowledge. They don't have to maybe tell us how they designed their database or anything, but you know, kind of like from a high level, just how Apple shows how they designed their M1 chips. Like, hey, it's a ARM processor, blah blah blah. But for us, I think, or for DeFi, I think it's, hey, this is what we are doing to prevent social engineering. This is how we isolate our systems internally. This is how
Yeah.
we hire. Like, this is the diligence that we do. And beyond it, it has to really, this is something that I think if you're a builder, if you're a company watching this and you're in crypto, I think this is something you should consider. Be very diligent who you work with. Be very diligent, do your homework as to how you're going to run your company. We're doing that right now. We're a pretty young company at MintLocke, but this is the direction I want crypto to take. And with Mythos, I really don't think it's going to replace cybersecurity firms. I don't think Cisco is going to lose its job. I think, like you said, Leon, it's very overhyped. However, if it's really good at finding security vulnerabilities, that 0-day vulnerabilities that have never been found before, that is something to pay attention to. And I think DeFi could benefit a lot from it. However, as we near the end of this episode, let's let's have some takeaways about what we talked today. April 2026 was the worst DeFi month in years, and here's what we learned. The attacker's surface has moved. Smart contracts aren't a weak point anymore. Keys, bridges, domains, and humans are. A lot of social engineering is the vulnerability here. Composability is both DeFi's feature and its biggest vulnerability. One whitelisted token can take down $6 billion. I mean, that's what happened, in this, what the things that we covered today. Um, Also, attackers are already AI augmented, not just the people creating these systems or implementing security features. Defenders, still a lot of them haven't fully caught up in my opinion because there's a motive to it. I think attackers have a lot of motive to be on top of these tools because they want to get a lot of money. Defenders, people who run these companies, they probably just there to collect a paycheck and they don't care anymore. The gap closes one way or another here, which you got to hire people who care about what they do, about their craft. And I think when people are doing a 9 to 5, they're just there to collect a paycheck for the most part. Anthropic has the tool here also, with Cloud Mythos. There's no DeFi protocol or let alone any crypto company there. So, in my opinion, that's a culture problem, like you said, Leon, not a tech problem. So, crypto just, it's always been portrayed as this kind of boogeyman, even like when
Yeah.
Bitcoin was around. But people need to start accepting like this is the way fintech is moving, and here's the thing. Uh, I know someone in San Antonio, and San Antonio is a pretty big startup ecosystem, probably bigger than Dallas, if I'm being honest. And the one thing I'm seeing there's people who are building on AI or who are very AI savvy. They really believe in crypto because, unlike US dollars, highly regulated, you can actually do a lot more with crypto, with AI. And there's a lot of these tools that are being built for AIs to use crypto. So,
What about like ramp? Like I'm seeing a lot of like,
ramp.
yeah, like I'm seeing a lot of like TradFi take on over that. Like ramp is like the go-to for agents right now, which is super
Oh, yeah.
interesting.
I
And
didn't know it
then
was the
like
go to.
other ones are using it.
Honestly, from what, if I think what you're talking about like the cards you can dispatch to these agents, and they can make commercial purchases. Correct?
Yeah.
Commercial purchases are great, I think, but that's as far as you can do with ramp. Because of that, it's pretty constrained to it. Like, you can check out on Shopify, which is the biggest place you can buy things online, but you can't program yield, you can't program distribution or economies like you can with crypto. So for that reason alone, I just think we haven't found its crypto has yet to find its iPhone moment. People have been saying that for a long time, and I think with agents, we still have a way to go there. So I'm bullish for the future. I'm very hopeful. I'm very optimistic, especially in the way AI is moving. But we just haven't had a breakthrough yet. And maybe until that happens, people who have been the ones saying like crypto's bad will maybe change their minds. People change their minds all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a big marketing push that has to happen, and
Yup,
security has to come to the forefront. And right now, that's the problem.
absolutely. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, this has been Social Ledger Report. Thanks for watching.